a desert season where they're just not as good as normal, be it recruiting or underperformance or injuries or whatever. Like, you just can't make it through an entire career and not see that from time to time. So I think, rather than it being a negative, I think it's just a reminder of how good a coach he is, even in the midst of a season like this year and last. And then hopefully a reminder of where things will hopefully return under normal circumstances going forward. So, it's been a strange recruiting cycle coming off all the NCAA stuff from a couple years ago, but now you start to land some of this one-and-done talent, but that's led to weeding out some of the multi-year talent. And so I think they're just not in a sweet spot right now. It's like you either have to fully commit to one-and-dones like Kentucky and Duke have, or say, we're going to sprinkle a couple of those guys in with a Joel Berry and a Theo Pinson, these maybe 4 to low 5-star guys that are going to stick around for a couple of years. And I think some of the freshmen this year, I think that's what we've got in them, and that excites me going forward. So, like you said, I think it's still possible he'll pass Coach Knight this year into third place all time. They can get by Duke on Saturday, maybe pick up a win or two either in the ACC tournament or the NCAA tournament. I think he can get to 903 right now. And absolutely he's underappreciated. There's no questioning that. Look at all the times he should have won ACC Coach of the Year that he hasn't, because Josh Pastner won 2 more games than he should have at Georgia Tech or whatever it is. But being just on the road from Coach K and John Calipari, and what a flamboyant personality he is, I think it just has settled Coach Williams in under some of those guys. And you know what? Good. Let people appreciate him.
Let's talk about Duke now. Big game on Saturday. Carolina won the first matchup in a high-scoring affair back in February. Can we or should we expect the same type of game on Saturday inside the Smith Center?
Yeah, I would say so. It's typically when these guys get together, they know each other so well, but they just go out and play and score a bunch of points. So emotions are going to be high. It'll be senior night. It's the rivalry. The rivalry always carries these emotions. So I would say maybe things are a little bit sloppy out of the gate as everyone's trying to settle in. Maybe Garrison Brooks presses a little bit because it's senior night. You know, those kind of things that we see. But I'd say once things settle in, it will be up and down, high possession, high scoring, just like it was last time. As we know, both teams are going to be desperate to win because of the season they've had and because of bubble status. I gotta think the Tar Heels won't shoot as well from 3 as they did last time. I just don't see them hitting 10 and 15 again. That'd be great if they did, but I don't think you can rely on that production again. I would also not be surprised. You know, in recent years, Duke has done a great job of spreading the floor and just dribble drive attacking, and then kicking out for threes or taking the layup if it's there. Unfortunately, we know Carolina doesn't do a great job defending that type of offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go more to that. So I would say mostly similar, but we might see a few differences from the first game. But it's weird. It's like we've circled around a couple weeks later, and they're both still right where they were last time they played, both sitting on squarely on the bubble.
Right. It had appeared Duke had turned the corner after the departure of Jalen Johnson, but back-to-back losses have the Blue Devils on the outside looking in for the NCAA tournament. Earlier, you tried to help me figure out Carolina's season to this point. Can you help me figure out the Blue Devils at this point, Isaac?
No, I can't figure them out either. Man, Duke is just as much of an enigma as Carolina is. So, clearly, without Jalen Johnson, they are a less talented group.
Right.
I mean, there's just no doubt he is a talented young man. But from what I've seen out of them, I've had the opportunity to watch several Duke games recently, including I watched the entire Georgia Tech game this week, and they are undeniably a better team without him. I think they have more buy-in. I think they're more unified. It reminds me more of the teams when Duke has just been really good, where they are unheralded in terms of the names on the back of the jersey. but just know how to play together well. And so that honestly, as a Tar Heel fan, it scares me a little bit. I wish he was still on the roster.
Yeah.
But to help figure out Duke, I think now even more so, they are relying on fewer people offensive production. Their offense is very highly rated. They're 14th in offensive efficiency. But against Georgia Tech the other night, for example, they only had 3 people score a point in the first 16 minutes of the game. At halftime, only 4 different Tar Heel Blue Devils had scored, and one of them was Brayfield and had just 2 points. So, they're relying on just this small core to score. And now, last time they played Carolina, they had 4 different scorers in double digits, so maybe it'll be different, but same thing. It's just up and down and back and forth, and I don't think they know which way's up.
There will be fans in the Smith Center for Saturday's game. I think it will be the largest crowd Duke has actually played in front of this season. How much of a factor will the fans play in this game if Carolina was to win?
Oh, it'll be huge. We heard about this after the Florida State game last week. I believe Coach Williams said it was the loudest 3,200-person crowd he'd ever heard in his life. And so it's weird because in a cavernous building that seats 21,000 people, like even a small but vocal crowd, it's going to reverberate and echo around, and you're going to hear it, and maybe even more hearing individual voices than you normally would. And so it will absolutely play a factor, and you hate to say it almost unfairly, but it kind of works out that 2 of your biggest ACC home games thankfully have fans with Florida State and now Duke. And so Walker Kessler talked about after the game how impactful it was to have the crowd support, and said, I really think this crowd helped spur on that second half run. And so you've got to think, again, we talked about senior night, given all that emotion. I think it's going to spur things on in a good way. Now, does that mean they win? Hopefully so. A crowd can't win a game, but it certainly won't hurt.
Yeah, you're right about that. A few weeks ago, Carolina did a fantastic job limiting Matthew Hurt, and it's a big reason why they were able to win the ball game. Hurt, though, is coming off a bad game at Georgia Tech, and will be looking to bounce back in a big way. Any concern for Carolina being able to limit his damage once again?
Absolutely, there is. There's always concern for containing or, at least limiting a prolific scorer multiple times in a season. I'm sure he learned a lot from watching the tape of the first game. Last time they played, I think Hurt just had 7 points, 3 rebounds, no steals, no blocks, fouled out of the game. And so, between that and then what you said, Josh, about not doing so great at Georgia Tech the other night, he's chomping at the bit to get out there and prove himself. He had 37 just before that. So, obviously it's there, the capability. I went back and watched some of the footage from the first game. Garrison Brooks had the defensive assignment on him most of the game. And so thankfully he is fleet-footed enough to be able to move with him. When Brooks was on the bench, we saw Sharp on him a lot. I think even though Sharp is a boy, he can move, man. There was a play right towards the end of the first half where Duke tried to make an entry pass into Matthew Hurt, and Sharp was able to get around front, deflect it, and it led to a Caleb Love 3 in transition. So Tar Heels have the bodies to throw at him. I don't think Baycott would match up with him quite as well, but I feel comfortable with any of Brooks or Sharp or even Walker Kessler on him, even Leaky Black with his length and athleticism.
Right.
So I think the Tar Heels have what they need to be able to hold him at bay, but, you got to imagine he gets more than 7 this time around.
I'll get you out on this, Isaac. There's a lot on the line for both teams. Instead of vying for an ACC title or a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, they're both trying to essentially win themselves into the big dance. Carolina wins if they do what?
Oof, man, you are right. We've got like a bubble brouhaha going on Tobacco Road. Yeah, it's so weird. We're not looking for ACC championships. We're not looking for the top end of the tournament. We're just looking to get there for both teams. Honestly, I love it. It's awesome. And to answer your question, Carolina wins so this is going to be the most obvious answer you've ever heard in your life. If they make shots.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of this, Josh, but in order to win a basketball game, you have to score more points than your opponent when the clock hits 0 at the end of the game. It's this new rule they added in this year. But it's seriously, other than the Louisville game, the Tar Heels haven't shot better than 42% since the last time they played. Now, obviously, that's a good thing. Duke's defense is something of a cure-all. They're like, last time I checked, they were like 100 or 101 in defensive efficiency. So you got to feel good about that and what it means for scoring. But the Tar Heels got to shoot better. I know it sounds simple and elementary, but you got to shoot the ball. And then to the point of our last question with Matthew Hurt, I think you got to force somebody else other than him to be the one that beats you. Mm-hmm. So, see if some of these other guys can do that offensively. And then, two more. Number one, we got to hang on to the ball. The Tar Heels have back-to-back 20-plus turnover games, and you just are not going to win doing that. Of course, ironically, they've had 4 20-plus turnover games this year and won 3 of them, but that's an outlier. You're not going to continue to do that.
Right.
So, Caleb Love, R.J. Davis, gotta hang the ball, get back assists going. And then the last thing is, I would say, just embracing senior night in a healthy way. Let's win for these seniors, for Garrison Brooks and Playtech and Walker Miller and KJ Smith. Let's send these guys out on the right note. We know how important senior night is to Roy Williams year in and year out. And so I think Carolina, if they just lean into that well, don't put too much pressure on it, because that makes you play rushed or tight or things like that. But let's do what we can to get these guys a home win in their last time at home. And so looking forward to seeing all 4 of those guys starting on Saturday night with, I don't know, probably with Leakey as the 5th starter, since we've got 2 guards and 2 bigs. But, man, it'll be fun. Always fun.
Isaac, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Once again, I mentioned you write for Sports Illustrated. Where can readers find your work at?
Yeah, that's great. Right on Sports Illustrated, si.com/college/UNC. You can also find me on Twitter, just at Isaac Schade. I also make predictions for all my games at Tally Sites, TALLYSIGHTS. And so you can find those there. I put out predictions for money line and over and under and against the spread. So if you're looking for that, you can find that as well.
All right, Isaac. Just want to thank you for coming on and talking with me once again.
Man, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it, brother.
All right, we'll talk to you down the line, sir.
Okay.
And there you go, guys. There's Isaac Schade from Sports Illustrated on to talk about Carolina and then, of course, this game on Saturday against the Blue Devils. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. Before I let you go, get you guys over to the website, HeelToughBlog.com. We got you covered football, basketball, and baseball-wise. If you don't miss any of that great content about the Tar Heels, get all of that on HeelToughBlog.com. And lastly, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on every major podcasting feed, most notably Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Podcasts. Giving a like, give us a review, but much more, I want you guys to subscribe, that we get every great episode like this one in your podcast feed. With that, I want to thank Isaac once again for coming on and talk a little Carolina basketball. We thank you guys for listening, and as always, go Tar Heels.